wellness friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Wellness Inspired Podcast, a place where you can find inspiration, motivation, and empowerment in the pursuit of a wellness lifestyle. I'm your host, Sherry Davidson. I'm a wellness coach, acupuncturist, trail runner, and former interior designer in Houston, Texas, and I am deeply passionate about health and well-being. And as always, I'm here with my co-host, Finn. And if you're new to the podcast, Finn is my terrier mixed rescue dog, trail runner, and loyal companion. He is also a therapy dog and greeter at Element 5 Acupuncture and Wellness. In this episode, I sit down with Keveney Avila, a former attorney who traded courtroom wins for soulful alignment. After building a successful career, Keveney hit a breaking point that led her to walk away from the shoulds and follow something deeper. Now a prosperity mentor and spiritual director, she blends ancient energy practices, modern science, and intuitive wisdom to help high achievers redefine success on their own terms. In this episode, we'll explore the wake-up call that shifted everything, what prosperity really means, and I'll give you a little hint, it's not just about money, her P-Suite mentorship, and how it helps ambitious minds find clarity, creativity, and flow. Also, we'll talk about how mastering your energy changes everything, from your health to your relationships. I'm excited to share this conversation with you. This one is for anyone ready to tune out the noise and live from a place of grounded purpose. Let's dive in. Hi, Keveney. Welcome to the podcast again.
I'm glad to be here again.
You know, I went back and checked last time we talked. I said you were my second episode because you've been on the podcast before.
Yeah.
And I went back and checked. You were my first.
Oh, fun.
So my first episode, and it's been a while since I've interviewed people, and you're my first person to start interviewing again.
Okay. Well, there's a pattern here.
There's a pattern.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to what's that?
It's exciting.
It is exciting. So thank you for coming back on. You're a friend, and I guess I met you 5 years ago. I think I met you in 2020.
Yeah, I think so.
Because I think it was BNI, and I started that in the beginning of 2020.
Yeah, 2020 was the BNI year.
Yeah, and then we shut down. Well, I just want to give you a brief introduction. You are a spiritual director and animal communicator. You are a mentor for high performers who are outwardly successful but quietly stuck. Your work is rooted in clarity, energy, and aligned prosperity without the hustle or fluff. And with the upcoming launch of your 9-month mentorship program, the P-Suite, I think this is an episode. This episode is a great space to explore what real prosperity looks like and why so many driven people still feel like there's something missing. So if you'd like to introduce yourself, just tell people who you are.
Yeah. So my background, I practiced law for 10 years, and I had created a lot of success outwardly. I had a great husband, a great house. I had a great job. Internally, I was angry. I was miserable. I was a lot of things that were not great. And an incident with my dog happened, and I had sort of this mystical experience, and I knew that I needed to go back to what I knew as a kid, which was, I say energy is my first language. I remember seeing energy, moving energy before I remember walking, talking. And so I brought my dog home from the vet against the orders. I spent 9 days playing with energy. She recovered miraculously, and I left corporate. And so for the last, since 2016, so for the last however many years that is, 9 years maybe, I have been doing prosperity mentoring for high performers who have created success in their job or their career. However, other things have become fractured, broken. So they've sacrificed their health, their relationships, mental health, physical health, their family. And I also help entrepreneurs who have a great service, have a great product, but they need more clients, or they need to create a different level of success and scale. And there are some things holding them back. So I work with high performers to either create harmony in their job and keep that job, or to kick the job and monetize their passion.
Yeah. So how did you know in that moment? So I know you had this mystical experience with your dog. And then how did you like bridge that gap between that moment and then knowing that you wanted to, be a mentor, like a spiritual mentor for high driven entrepreneurs?
So it kind of happened for me. um, I left corporate thinking I'm going to work with animals. I'm going to do animal healing, energy healing. What I learned was they're just energetic sponges. They're like kiddos, right? They take on our stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I realized pretty quickly that people would come to me for their animals. And when I started to work with the humans, the animals, behavioral issues, physical sickness, whatever it was, started to disappear. And so the animals were sort of the conduit into the healing with the humans. And then what happened was, I created more. I mean, I was happier, I was healthier, I was in a much better place, but I also created more money success my first year as an entrepreneur than I ever did in all of the various corporate jobs I had. And so, most of my friends were attorneys, still are attorneys, and my husband's in corporate finance. So he had a lot of friends that were CPAs, and people who had MBAs. And so everyone in my kind of inner circle started asking, wait a minute, you made more money doing this thing you do with animals that they all kind of laughed about than you did working with us, right? And I said, yes. And so they wanted to know how. So that's how it evolved into helping other initial. I mean, I have a lot of attorney clients, but helping other professionals to figure out how to teach them what I learned on my journey and to help them live, like you mentioned, true prosperity. My last 6 months of corporate, when I knew I was going to be transitioning at the end of the year, I knew I was not going to go back after the holidays. I started reading. I mean, I've always been a nerd and read a lot, but I started diving into all of the major religions, right? All of the major prophets, whether you follow Jesus or Krishna or Muhammad or Buddha, right? Or Vedanta philosophy or ancient philosophy. There's a golden thread that weaves through everything of the really high teachings. Mm-hmm. And so I started to, learn that and work to embody it. And I did a retreat in Santa Fe with some shamans, and I went to a yoga retreat for 2 weeks in Costa Rica. And I just started searching the globe for the highest teachings on prosperity, on, how to live a full, prosperous, abundant life, and happy life. And, I've always, in law school, I worked at a think tank on the Newport Navy base in Rhode Island, and I studied peak performance. So how do you, if you have an elite team like the SEALs, how do you drop them into flow if they aren't, marching or doing something for a long time? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, 20 years ago, I was studying, everything from microdosing psychedelics to marching to, going to Burning Man, all of the things to drop you into flow. Mm-hmm. And so I've always been geeking out on that research. And then universal law has always been a passion. So kind of weaving all of those things together, which brings us to the P-Suite.
Yeah, yeah. Sounds like a great and awesome evolution. It sounds like it started with burnout, and then you had the mystical experience with your dog, and then you made the decision to get out and do animal communication. But then you realized really quickly that if you worked on the humans, that process was a lot easier and you had a better results with the animals. Is that what I heard? Yeah. And then you just had this evolution of, into where you are now, into P-suite and helping not high executive, but high performers. That's awesome. That's a beautiful evolution. So speaking about prosperity, I want to go beyond the bank account. You define prosperity as something that includes finances. Yes, but it also is relationships, health, and spiritual alignment. And that is not what most of us are taught. So, how do you define true prosperity? And what does it shift when you stop chasing someone else's version of success? Oh, and how does it shift?
Yeah. I mean, for me, true prosperity is having, I mean, it's kind of my catchphrase, right? But having your soul settled every single day, right? So no matter what happens in your in your personal world, in the collective world, we live in some crazy times that no matter what, at any moment, right? We all have moments of, chaos, but even amid that chaos, our soul is settled. We know who we are, we know what we're about, we know how we want to live, and we have the tools and the, I guess, soul container, to and the wisdom to be able to control our reaction most of the time, right? No one's perfect. But we have the tools to really live with joy and with success and with harmony, no matter what is happening in our personal or collective world. And then what did you ask me? The shift? Where does that shift
Yeah, how
happen?
does this shift? Yeah. How does it shift when we stop chasing someone else's version of our of
Mhm.
success?
Yeah, I think, I was just recently at a resort for a few days with my husband. He was doing some work at a conference and I was resorting. And so I was at the spa and I was in the pool and I was doing all these things. And granted, I had planted the seeds, but I came out of my massage and I had a new, when someone from my wish list had stepped into the prosperity suite, I had a bunch of new calls booked. And I was like, oh, this is what happens when you're in flow, right? For me, water is flow. And I'd been at the pool and the spa. And so I think that shift is when we learn that our business model, right, or our life or our relationships don't have to look like what we've been taught, what we've learned, what we think, somebody else, what we think is the definition of perfect based on what we see, when we can truly define our life for ourselves
Mm-hmm.
and build the soul confidence, right? Like, I talk about miracles, why do we think that miracles are so miraculous, right? They don't happen all the time. They're extraordinary. I believe that miracles happen every day, but not a lot of us, we have to build the soul container to be able to sustain the energy of something happening for us that nobody else can understand.
Yeah.
And so I think that shift of true prosperity happens when we can, we have that soul esteem.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And when I talk about it in retreats, like there's a piece where I think humans, we like to acquire things. We like to acquire stuff, wisdom, books, people, all the things. And then at some point, they make it into our mind. We logically can understand the concepts. But the more when I work with clients, I'm like below the neck, below the neck, below the neck, like bring it in. So
Mm-hmm.
there's the first, there's the understanding, and then there's, okay, let's get in alignment. And then at some point, there's a shift that's a visceral embodiment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that kind of from a mysticism point of, I can never go back to
Yeah.
what was before, or I can, but it's going to cost me, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's an internal shift that happens that we all have to kind of experience in our own way. However, I have some tools and some hacks to help people to set them up for that shift.
I love that. I love that. I think you called it soul esteem. You
Mm-hmm.
know, one, you have to have the awareness to start breaking down that old self too,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, yeah, I think that's interesting when you talk about for some reason, the self esteem, or that's not self esteem, but soul esteem is almost that true self.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that?
Yeah, I think there's an essence about all of us, right? And
Yeah.
whatever mask we've put on, whatever we've learned, whatever we've
Mm,
been taught, um, it's a lot of excavating
yeah,
to get to
yeah,
that essence sometimes.
yeah. I'm just thinking. I've been reading and watching a lot of and I know we talked about this before, but that shadow work. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I've just been doing my own research on it with Carl Jung, and
Oh, awesome.
it's super intriguing. And I'm still trying to. It's like I get it conceptually, but in
Mm-hmm.
application, it's a lot more difficult. But it does remind me of kind of bringing that, because his idea, it sounds dark, but it's actually very positive,
Mm-hmm.
where
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, like it's becoming whole, right? Like, and
Mm-hmm.
uncovering those
Yeah.
parts of you that you've repressed, because of your parenting or your environment or your culture or your, and so it's really about digging deep and seeing that and being aware and mindful of when those things pop up, right?
Yeah.
So it sounds very similar, and that word, I don't know, I really like that word, soul esteem. It sounds really great. So I want to go into working with the group of people that you've decided to work with, which are the high performers. And I think you mentioned earlier that that's just who you're around because of your social circle and what you did for a living. You're an attorney. So you work with driven, capable people, and from the outside, they look like they're thriving. But underneath, they're navigating stress, lack of clarity, and scarcity patterns. Why do you think this happens, especially with people who seem to have it all, especially on the outside?
Yeah, I think we all, develop, we all achieve certain accolades for different reasons, right?
Mhm.
Whether it's that, I didn't have lawyers for parents. My mom was a professor, my dad was a CPA. They were really not a fan of the idea of law school. But I had my own idea of what I wanted to do with that. And so we all kind of set out on our journey for maybe part of it is our choice, right? And part of it is what we've seen or been taught or think we need to do to prove something.
Mhm.
I think the more, I have this theory, right? I haven't tested it, but the more initials we have behind our name, the more schooling we have, the higher our need to be right is, and the bigger fear we have of being like
Mhm.
found out, or it's why you see so much imposter syndrome. Because, especially if you're if you're in a job where you have to perform at a high level and you have to have the answers, whether you're a doctor or a lawyer or some type of fiduciary, it can be fearful to not have the answers, and we're not
Mhm.
taught to say, oh, you know what, I don't have that answer right now, but let me go research it and come back, right? So we sort of put on these masks and we build up this persona, and it can show up in different ways. Some of us, I always talk about the need to be right and the need to make other people wrong, because we all have some variation of it,
Mhm.
and it's a big thing that keeps us stuck. And our shadows are often where our greatest wisdom lies. Like when I talk about shadow work, which I think is the most essential work for anyone on the planet right now to do, to me, shadow work it's really the parts of yourself that are going out and creating the stuff that you don't want,
Yeah.
right? Because they're, whether it's a pattern or it's like I'll have people come to me and they'll say, I'm doing all the things, I'm thinking positive and I'm lighting the candle and I'm doing all of the manifesting, and it's not working. And the truth is, it's working, right? The universal laws are infallible truth principles. They are always working.
Yeah.
You might be manifesting stuff you don't want, right?
Yeah.
Because of the energy that you're radiating or the frequency that you're vibing at. But I think about myself, and it wasn't until I was in my late 30s, early 40s, the last 5, 6, 7 years, where I really realized that, the things that I absolutely would not claim as a kid, the things that people would tell me, oh, you're too sensitive.
Mhm.
You feel things too deeply. You're too much, right? So instead of being that sensitive, I developed this attorney, aggressive, tough girl, like persona, right? We're great in the courtroom, not so great in life, right? And it wasn't until like I did so much work, and I do work every day, right? I think it's a journey we're on forever. That I realized, oh my gosh, like my power, my wisdom, like my greatest gifts and the way that I can serve people is in all of those things that I was told were too much,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And so you suppressed all those things. Yeah.
Yeah, or I suppressed them, or I would only show them to certain people, or I mean I still felt them, but
Yeah.
the external reaction was anger versus tears or sadness, or just letting myself feel the things that I felt so deeply.
Yeah. I've done some self reflection on those things, and I very very much like you. Uh, I was told to be strong, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and if I go through my my history, I can see like I was a competitive kickboxer for 16. Well, I trained competitively for 16 years in kickboxing. I actually fought for 3 years. So,
Wow.
but that was that was me trying to be strong, and fiercely independent, like I had to be all of
Yes.
these things instead of really, and those are very in Chinese medicine, they're very yang. It's the masculine side, it's the yang side, right? Where I have this very soft, like, feminine side that I feel like needs to come out more. And I want it to come out, and it's starting to come out more than my kind of the stoic, like I can take anything on and I can conquer anything. And but that was also how I was loved too, right? Was to be strong. So I've done a lot of self-reflection. So I find it super, it's not always things that you exactly want to see, but sometimes it's good to see them. And when you see the good in them, it's actually, yeah, like you said, like it's life changing, and it's subtle. It's not like this big grand finale of fireworks, but it's just this subtle thing, like, wow. And then you don't want to go back, right? Like,
Yeah, there's a lot of wisdom in the work.
yeah, I was just listening to, again, Carl Jung, and he was talking about perfectionism. And, again, going back to that, it sounds, some of his work sounds very dark, but that perfectionism is really about this potential, this repressed potential of creativity that wants to come out, right? And
Yeah.
so there's really this, like, if you can let that out, you can see your full potential, right? But in that, it's scary. It's, anyways, I think it's fascinating. I love this kind of work.
Well, and I think, if you think about like letting that creativity out, right? That's where you find your flow,
Yeah.
right? Is in that deep creativity. And, when I work with people, whether it's tweaking an offer or, leaving a job and doing the thing that they've always been passionate about and figuring out how to monetize that, when we can step into, we might hear it called like the zone of genius,
Mhm.
but when we can step into that space, that's our, I would say unique gift or just that zone of genius, and we can really use our innate talents to create, that's
Mhm.
when all of the prosperity wheels start to turn and things start to really flow together.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. So how do you handle, because if you're scared of that potential and what comes along with that potential, which is more visibility and judgment and all of those things, like, how do you coach somebody through the fears of seeing their full potential?
So I play in the energy space.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we talk about mindset, we talk about positive thinking, all those things. But the truth is, we have three brains. We have the head brain, the heart brain, and the gut brain. And we can never outthink the energy in our heart and our gut.
Mhm.
So you can listen to positive affirmations, put post-its on your mirror, think happy thoughts, write yourself the $1 million check, all the things. And if the energy in your gut is, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I don't know enough, I'm afraid to be seen, who am I to do this, whatever our version of that is,
Hmm.
we can never outthink that energy. So what I do is I help people identify the energy and clear the energy.
Got it.
And I've studied and been certified in several different energy modalities, but I also have created my own that I've used since I was little. And I think a big difference, I I have never been in therapy, but I have many clients who have, and my understanding is there's a lot of looking at the past in therapy. In mysticism, it's very forward looking, right? It's future looking, and it's a similar thing in social psychology, right? The aspirational self, like who do we have to be today to be that person we want to be in 2 weeks, 2 years, whatever.
Mhm.
And so I don't need to, when I work with people one on one or like in the prosperity suite, I don't need to know every trauma and drama that happened to you in the past to have that energy in your gut.
Hmm.
I might scan the body and say, I'm seeing a lot of energy around your pancreas. That's associated with defeat. Have you felt defeated? Yes. Do you want to let go of that? Yes, right? Or no, sometimes we don't. Sometimes, there's woundology is real, right? People
Yeah.
identify with their wounds. But if we do want to let it go, then I help clear the energy, and then we also replace with higher thought. Because if we don't replace with higher thought, we go back and create at the same frequency. So the biggest, I would say, differentiator, right, between me and a lot of coaches is I play in the energy. And I say play not in a playful way, but that is my zone of genius is in clearing the energy.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. And your program is nine months.
It is, yes.
And what at the end, well, let me ask you this first. In working with P Suites, what kinds of resistance or stuckness show up the most?
I think I don't know if I would say resistance or stuckness. I think surprises happen a lot,
Mm-hmm.
right? So people come in wanting to scale their business, create more money, or let go of some type of, maybe they have rheumatoid arthritis, some type of physical thing. And what happens is what we work on to get that resolved is not anything that they would expect, right? If you want to
Mm-hmm.
scale your business and create more money and have higher level clients or whatever the thing is, like we might spend the first couple times together talking about your relationship with your mom or dad
Mm-hmm.
or a hurt that you had in the past, because that might be the energy that needs to transmute to open the space for you to hold the container for the bigger clients or the higher dollar ticket. And so I think there's a lot of surprises. I think in terms of resistance, right? Um, when I talk about everybody has a need to be right. And it's not that, I like this particular person and you have to like this person, or my favorite meal is X and you need to have this be your favorite meal. It's really what the need to be right is at some point in our life, usually before age 7 or 10, we have made unconsciously certain decisions about ourselves. I'm not smart enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not good enough. Whatever the thing is, I'm too much.
Mm-hmm.
And then what we do is, because our ego, our little self, right, the job is to protect and keep us safe and small. We will go out and create and pull in more of those same situations that prove, yep, I'm too much. It's like you date one person and they cheat on you, and then you're like, oh, all people cheat, and then we date 5 more cheaters.
Right.
And so it's really this, like, we're pulling in situations and circumstances that prove the belief that we have about ourselves.
Mm.
And so when we can say, like, is it true that I'm too much? Is it true that I'm not smart enough? No, it's not. Like, we have, I've had people I had a client who had a JD, a PhD, an MBA, an engineering undergrad. He was a patent attorney. I mean, and I'm like, is it true that you're not smart enough? Right? Like, on paper, you're pretty smart, right? You have a lot of accolades. But it was just like, always, I'm never smart enough. So I have to keep getting more and more and more and more and more. And so I think that's the resistance I mean, it takes radical responsibility and
Yes.
really, really, really hard truth with ourself,
Mm-hmm.
honesty with ourself, to look at, everything we've created up until now, the good, bad, and the ugly. We are the common denominator, right? And we are the one that holds the key to change. And I think, it's not to say you can't do that work on your own. I certainly have done some of it on my own. I also have an amazing spiritual director that I've worked with for a few years, and I've worked with coaches in the past and mentors. But when you do something like the P Suite, you're getting a guide like me who's been through it, right? Who's walked through the journey, to walk beside you. Like, I'm a companion, I'm not a guru, but I'm there to walk beside you. And you're getting the speed. Like, can you figure it out yourself? Sure. Can you do it faster with a guide? Absolutely. Right. So you're joining that group of like-minded people to have the guide, to have the clarity, and to have the speed of transformation.
Yeah, I agree with that. You can do it a lot faster when you have somebody in your corner helping you that's been there before.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious what do you think about the nervous system? I know a lot gets stored in the nervous system.
Yeah, I mean, I think, what's the book? The Body Keeps the Score.
Body keeps the
Um,
score.
Absolutely. And I have a friend who Her whole practice, she's a functional medicine doctor, and her whole practice is on like what emotions are restoring and what energy center. So I think absolutely. How did you phrase your initial question?
Um, I was just curious about the nervous system because I know the nervous
The nervous
system
system.
holds the
Mhm.
score, and I was curious about your thoughts on it and how does that play into what you do?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely think the nervous system is huge, and I think the way it plays in is when we can clear the energy, right? And sometimes there are other tools that we
Yeah.
pull in. But I know like I help people to really get to know their body, right? Their visceral reactions,
Mhm.
because I think the nervous system tells us, right? We either our heart rate goes up or we feel heat or and we can really start to get below the neck. And like I know, when I'm going into ego or I'm going up on my soapbox, which I still do, I'm human, right? But I feel it coming up like through my whole system as heat, and my face will sometimes get hot. But I think if we can tune into those physiological, I guess it would be like clues.
Yeah.
And then when we start to clear the energy, I have people tell me like, "Oh, I don't get when I get up to speak in front of a group, I don't get those butterflies in my tummy, or I don't get that like trauma response that I used to have when I was so triggered."
Mhm.
So I think that how it plays with the nervous system is very much, similar to how we work with the energy body, if that makes sense.
Yeah. 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 I was curious too how you went about doing that because I know there are TRE, like trauma releasing
Hmm.
exercises. Some yogis have the same, have different exercises. I know that sound bowl therapy is a great way
Yeah.
to release the nervous system. Acupuncture is great for
Hmm.
regulating the nervous system. So yeah, I was just curious, like how you. It's been popping up a lot for
Yeah.
me lately. Is just this nervous system, and as an acupuncturist, I'm curious about incorporating. Even though I regulate the nervous system, I've never actually told people what I was doing, right? and
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and actually educated people on how acupuncture can help regulate the nervous system. So it's just been coming up a lot for me. And then it also has been coming up in the more kind of spiritual area where if you want to
Hmm.
grow, then you have to, regulate the nervous system because when you're always in that fight or flight, then it's hard to be creative or see those opportunities, right? Because you're basically running from a tiger the whole time. So why would you be open to
Yeah.
solutions and creativity? Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting because I've never really thought of it in this way until now. And you know what what I do to help people find their personal flow hacks is very similar to what I would say is how I have regulated my nervous system, right? So when you're
Yeah.
in flow, the space and time disappears and you're in deep creativity, and it's a very like peaceful space but also high productivity. But I know when I work, like for me, chanting, right? I have learned that if I am just like, sometimes I need to get the noise out, right?
Mhm.
And so I think like with clients, I do, sometimes it's things that I do directly with them. Sometimes it might be, they might be doing acupuncture. They might be doing, I have some sort of like very simple exercises for people that have been through trauma, right? To kind of like bring them back and help to self-regulate. So I think it's a combination of things, and sometimes it really is helping people to learn their body and find what works for them.
Yeah. 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 I like that because we're all so different, right? And there are so many choices out there that you have to find what works for you the best.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been playing around with those trauma releasing exercises and they're interesting, but I'm an athlete and the
Hmm.
exercises you're supposed to do to exhaustion. And I'm thinking I could do this all day long. Like,
Yeah.
so I mean, not really, but it takes me a lot longer than somebody else. But I do love sound bowls.
Hmm.
I want to go to a sound bowl studio over here. But anyway, back to
Well, and
this.
I think I'll just one thing for
Yeah.
you, like I'll just add on too. I think like we a lot of things we can do, and I don't know if this is resonant for you, but a lot of things we can do until we're exhausted, especially when we're doing them from a mental space.
Mm-hmm.
If we can drop in even more and just, I always say, like, if we hear ourselves saying I think, or I think, drop into I feel.
Mm.
Because if we're embodied and we're feeling, like, we tend to get more exhausted more quickly with some of that stuff. So it could just check in and be like, am I in head or am I in heart, kind of thing.
Oh, I like that. Okay. I'll try that. Yeah. See
Yeah.
what happens. I'll let you know. Okay. Can you share? I want to talk a little bit more about P Suite, but can
Mhm.
you share a shift you witnessed that really surprised you? Something that changed for someone, not just professionally, but personally and energetically. Like something
Yeah,
that's
I think I had a conversation with a client and colleague, Catherine. Just we were recording another episode, was it yesterday or the day before, recently, and she started working with me. Gosh, initially maybe almost 7 years ago, and I have always seen her as a visionary,
Mm.
right? I've seen her as somebody who sees the big picture, who's there to create and connect, and as a a leader. And she shared, which I didn't know, that prior to her working with me, she saw herself as an individual contributor, but not as a visionary at all, and not as somebody that would go out and create to the level that she's creating in the world now. She's, has a international networking group. She holds conferences in London and in the US, and she's just building a lot of different things. Um, and that was a shift that, I mean, I have seen the shift in the physical world of what she was creating then versus what she's creating now, and how her vision has expanded. But I think it speaks to, yes, I saw the outward shift, but there was an internal shift that she had that I didn't even know about
Mm.
until like 2 days ago. And I've been working on and off with her, and we co-create together and do things together. And so that was really cool to see that she went from thinking of herself as an individual contributor, kind of like helping to contribute to maybe someone else's vision, to I'm a visionary.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I can bring people along in my vision, which is really cool.
Yeah. That's got to be rewarding to see that. Yeah, I think I love seeing people make those shifts, those small little shifts that turn into something big. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so you've already mentioned what makes P Suite or your coaching and mentorship a little bit different, but I want to dig into it a little bit more. So
Hmm.
you describe the P Suite as a space where high performers move from confusion to clarity and burnout to flow. What makes this mentorship different from other coaching containers or programs?
Well, I think a lot of things.
Tell us.
um, so I mean, one, I am carefully curating the group. You can't just go and click a link and buy and sign up.
Mhm.
We have to make sure you're a good fit for me, I'm a good fit for you, and you're a good fit for this cohort. So I think the intentionality that's going into the group is, and I believe souls come together for a reason, right? So we end up with people that are going to be great fits. So I think just the intentionality that I'm putting into the cohort is a big one. I don't know of any other programs that are extremely tactical, in the sense of, what are the actions that I need to take today to become this tomorrow, whatever. Um, and also very, I would say, tactical, visceral, and energetic, right? So we're going to be getting in the nitty gritties of, what is your zone of genius? Are you creating within that? Are you selling within that? Maybe you don't want to, but maybe there's something that is in your zone of genius that you can incorporate to get you that flow, that's going to show up in your law practice, right? So I think the uniqueness of having the tactical, I love creating offers, I love helping people scale, with the energetic and intuitive and the deep, deep, deep internal and soul work, combined with teaching people, hey, here are, 10 to 12 infallible truth principles, universal law, whatever word you want to put to them, that when you really, really learn them and learn what does it look like for me to live in alignment with them and start to embody them, they're infallible, right? So once you can step into that, you can create whatever you want, right? And also that piece of, in real time, you're stepping in and, oh, this fear is coming up. Oh, this doubt is coming up. Oh, this scarcity mentality. And then we're clearing in real time.
Yeah. And creating a safe space.
Absolutely. Yeah. Number one. I mean, I am a very, it is a very inclusive space. It is a very sacred space, I believe. It's a space where all religions and no religion are welcome, right? We talk about spirituality, but that doesn't mean that you worship a certain God or you're a certain religion. It's, your higher power, should you have one, is between you and your higher power, right? And so it's a very inclusive space. And I'm, that's one thing that I am people that have worked with me, I'm very adamant at holding that space.
Yeah.
And I have a pretty big container to hold the space. So it tends to work out. And it's a combination of a little bit of private coaching or mentoring, monthly, twice a month group calls that'll also conclude hot seats and laser mentoring. And then 3 in-person intensives. If you can't come to Houston, then you can join virtually. But it's a combination of virtual, in-person, community, one-on-one, kind of all of my favorite ingredients and all of the things for me, kind of behind the scenes. It's the bridge to birth a new you, right? It's the bridge to birth a new human. Because I think the ways that we as a society, as humans, civilization, the ways we've been going for the last couple hundred years, like not all of that is sustainable.
Yeah.
And so we've got to birth new humans.
Yeah. Are you still on? Have you gotten off all social media except for LinkedIn?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I was off everything, but now I am on LinkedIn.
Yeah. I remember you've gone back and forth throughout the years. And obviously, I need to be on. I need to grow my business that way. And I know we talked about, hey, can I possibly grow my business without being on social media? And I don't remember if I talked to you about this last time we spoke, but a guy, his name is Chase Hughes. Did I mention him?
I don't think so.
He is a former military guy, and he is a behavior profiler. And he specializes, and for the military, he did brainwashing and interrogations, and he's super interesting. He's out of the service, and he's entered the public realm. And he's entered this space where this kind of personal growth, evolution, spiritual place. And he's super interesting because he will not get on social media at all. He thinks that social media, well, any kind of TV, like marketing, social media, all of it is basically brainwashing you. Like, so he will not get on it. He tells everyone he works with to get off social media. And he is all about coming back to yourself, what we've been talking about, finding yourself, taking off that mask, and who you think you are is not who you really are. And it's so interesting. But his work it's interesting, and I listen to him all the time, but it's also a little scary because he talks a lot about the world itself, right? But you should look him up. He's an interesting guy. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think all the more important, I mean, I went back on LinkedIn. I had been off everything for about 5 years, and I went back on partially because the P-suite is something that it's not, I mean, I think the value is more than there for the cost.
Mm-hmm.
And it is something that I designed for people who my intention for it was to have new people that hadn't worked with me in the past. And so far, everyone that stepped in has never worked with me before. So I'm really excited about that. But I knew I needed to reach more people than just in person. And so I'm kind of doing the experiment with LinkedIn, and it's been really fun. But I go on for a half hour in the morning, and then that's it, and I think all the more there is so much noise coming at us and programming and all of the
Yeah.
things that like all the more reason to like do the internal work and settle your soul and know who
Yes.
you are at your essence amid all the noise.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I'm on that journey as well, like
Yeah.
minimal use because I think it is useful. And I get a lot of educational stuff from it as well. So I'm definitely watching it for that. But yeah, I'm all for pulling back the mask and getting to know yourself. So talking about the people that have entered P Suite right now, you said are people that have never worked with you before. How do you blend that mindset, energy work, and practical systems inside P Suite without it feeling overwhelming or too much for people, especially if they're not new to this space?
Mm-hmm. So I meet people where they are. I will say that the people that are stepping in are, I mean, everyone has a different depth of experience in the
Mhm.
energy space or the intuitive space, or, they're at least open and curious to things like universal law. So I wouldn't say they're not complete novices to some of the topics.
Mhm.
And they've done some work on their own. Um, it's interesting. It just so happens that right now everyone who stepped in is a coach, some type of an executive coach, or mentor. And some people are wanting to scale their business. Some people, there's one gal who's wanting to she has an amazing, successful business and she's wanting to completely pivot to sort of a different model. I have somebody stepping in who like really could care less about talking about her law practice, right? She just wants to work on this whole stuff. And so the way that I navigate that is, I meet everyone where they are. And I try to use especially in one-on-ones, I use language that is comfortable for them, that resonates with them, and really just trying to meet people where they are and get to know people really well. And I encourage, we have a private community on Kajabi, so I encourage, the members to get to know each other, and really just, showing up with an open heart, an open mind, and just, being in that sacred witnessing of others and sacred space with others.
Nice. Love that. So, for someone listening who is curious but skeptical, what would you want them to know about stepping into this kind of space?
Well, I say if you're curious, just let's get on a call. No harm, no foul, right? We can just see if we think you're a good fit, if I'm a good fit for you. And I would say, my philosophy and what I've learned in my own work and coaching hundreds of other people, the soul knows, right? So if in your gut and if you're in your heart, you're feeling like, this is, I don't want to say I think, but I feel like this is my next step. I feel like this is the thing that's going to propel me to the next space I want to go to. Trust your gut, go with your soul. The human will catch up. So, I would much rather work with someone who is like, I know this is the thing. I don't know how I'm going to pay for it. We can get on a call. We can get creative. I'm really great at helping. Like, let's create some offers. Let's do some things. Um, and versus the person who has all the money in the world and is just doing it, as, oh, this might be fun, right? So go with your gut and the human will catch up.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that too. Do you have any rituals or grounding practices that help you stay rooted while navigating success?
I have a pretty extensive contemplative practice, so I tend to start each morning, with contemplative silence. I also, I'm not Catholic, but I learned to pray the rosary as a meditative practice, so I'll do that sometimes. Sacred dance is really good for me. Sometimes it's Bikram yoga in the backyard, but also there's a woman that I follow who does some sacred dance, just kind of getting the body moving. Reading some whether it's mystical, Kabir or Rumi, mystical poetry or high text. Those are kind of my start my day things.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's an hour and sometimes it's 3, right? And then I also, for me, I try to get in some kind of water most days, whether it's take a swim in the pool. My SOS is go take a shower. If I start to go into like, how am I going to figure this out? Take a shower, because water for me is a flow hack. Um, and I help everyone, all of my clients that I work with, I help you come up with your own, what is your routine, right? What helps you to ground? What helps you not just flow, but just starting your morning with whatever routine is going to set you up for the most success that day, whether it's a gratitude practice or exercise or silence. Well, we figure out what works for you.
Yeah, love that. Well, can you talk a little bit about P Suite itself as far as like, I know it's 9 months, the cost, you said a little bit like it was some community, but can you give us a little bit more about what that setup is like, what the structure is
Yeah,
like?
so it's a 9-month program,
Mhm.
and right now I've actually opened up. I initially had 5 founding member seats. I've opened up an additional 5, so we have a few founding seats left. Which with that you get an additional 3 hours of one-on-one companionship.
Mhm.
So that can be used as a mini VIP day. It can be used throughout the program. You can start immediately with some mentoring. So we have some private, and then everyone starts with a kickoff call, because I want to know what, if you could wave a wand and have 9 months from now, anything change, like what transformation would make it successful for you? And that's what we want to create. And that's what I'm creating the program around. It's each of those individual transformations. There are tools, there are, tools that I use, like the universal law and the energy clearing, but there is not a week by week program design until we know who the final cohort is, because that is all
Mhm.
custom to the cohort.
Right.
And then the structure is, so you have your individual, your kickoff call, and then we have 2 2-hour calls every month that are group calls. That'll be a combination of some high teachings and some laser mentoring, coaching, hot seating, energy clearing. And then we have 3 intensives throughout the 9 months that are at the Houstonian Club in Houston, Texas, or virtual. If you need to join virtually, you can. And then we have a private community on Kajabi where we can interact in between. I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but those are the big ones. And then, within that, there's like a space for people to ask me questions in between. And then there's going to be a monthly office hours for, questions. And the cost is, the pay in full is 12,555, and you can do just a deposit and then pay the difference before we launch on September 1. So doors are going to close on August 20th. So we're in the middle of launch right now. And there's also a payment plan. So that's a deposit. And then I think it's $13.95 for the 9 months.
13. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, one last question before we wrap things up. You talk about universal law and mysticism,
Mm-hmm.
but also lead in business and entrepreneurship spaces.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you personally bridge the mystical with the practical?
So for me, it's all one and the same. I just get creative with my language.
Yeah.
So if I might not talk about mysticism, so to speak, or spirituality, obviously in corporate, or I might, instead of saying universal law, I still will say truth principle, and I still will bring universal law in. But a lot of it is, when I do corporate workshops, it's very peak performance, flow science,
Mhm.
sort of that I lean into the modern science and just kind of sneak the ancient wisdom in there.
So it comes down to language. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty. Because to me, it's one and the same. And I've had clients that have come to me, that the same guy that I mentioned that had all the million degrees, he came to me and he said, I
Mhm.
don't believe in God. I don't believe in anything, any higher power. I don't believe in anything. And I said, okay, well, do you believe you're made up of energy? And he said, well, I don't really know. And I said, well, if your heart stops, are they going to pump you with energy? And he said, well, yeah, I guess. And we talked a little bit. So for him, it was, I mean, I geek out on quantum physics. So for him, it was, we talked about black holes and quantum physics and energy. And so, um, I just adapt the language because to me, the energy is the energy is the energy.
Yeah. 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 Speaking of quantum physics, when you said earlier that you, what did you say? You said you act as you want to act and you let your gut catch up later. What did you say? You
Oh,
said,
you like make the decision from the soul and the human will catch up.
the human will catch up. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
It reminds me very much of quantum physics, especially in that space where you have this vision of who it is that you want to be, that you focus on that vision and then you'll catch up, right? Like the human will catch up to that vision, but you have to focus on that vision. That came to mind when you said that earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, you asked earlier about what is some of the resistance
Yeah.
that, we might get. And I think a lot of that is around time, right? It's
Yeah.
still a lack energy. But, if you look at the research around, I'm thinking of the book 10x is easier than 2x and the idea of impossible goals. Like we humans will fill whatever time we have, right? And
Yeah.
so part of the 9 month and I would say a theme that is emerging for this cohort is mastery.
Mhm.
So looking at what does it take, and everyone might be mastering something different, and we might master 5 things during the cohort. Like research shows it takes about, I think it's like 61 or 66 days to truly master.
Mm.
So we're going to play with some of those time frames in the cohort or in the P suite. But I think, you know, it is true. Some of the resistance comes when people might say, okay, in 9 months from now, I want to do this. And I'm like, well, why not 3 months? Right. Because it's that idea of the impossible goal. And we are, in my words, it's going quantum, right?
Yeah.
How do we go quantum, whether it's healing or creating or success? A lot of times it's really going up against some of our resistance around the beliefs we have about time.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm on a year right now. I'm visioning in a year right now, so maybe I need to back it up to 6 months.
Yeah, just if like because if you give it was I was listening to a talk, or maybe it was in the book The Science of Scaling. I recently read it. I have thoughts, but um it was this guy who wanted to buy I think it was wanting to buy a professional sports team by the time he was 50 or something. And Ben Hardy said, well, what if you did it by the time you were 35? And I think he was in his 20s. And one of the things he wanted to do was to pursue a PhD. And why are we, and so the idea is, and I think it's a Ben Hardy concept, I think, um, is, what are we optimizing that shouldn't exist? Right? Because how many times, we're so busy making this better, when if we actually looked at our 10-year goal, it's like, does this even matter to that goal? Maybe we should just let it go now. But
Yeah.
we have a hard time letting things go sometimes.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. But it's a place that we deal with the resistance of it in the P suite, so it's relevant, right?
Yeah. Letting go. When I was in Austin, I don't know. I think that kept coming up for me. Let go, let go, let go. And I was trying to feel like what that felt like in my body, to let go. And so I took a quarter and I put it in my hand and I dropped it. And I was trying to get that feeling in my body to like, how does that, because I didn't know how it felt to let go. But it's hard. It's
Yeah.
hard to embody that.
Well, and I think just the reframe for me, like reframing let go to release,
Mm,
helps a lot, because letting go feels like, I think of like the scene in Twister where they're holding on and the tornado's coming, and if you let go, you're going to be swept up. Whereas if you can just like release it, then it's okay.
yeah.
It's kind of like the idea when you're trying to release weight. I always say release weight versus lose weight, because what's lost must be found, and you don't want to find the weight again. So I'm like, how can we reframe the word, because words have energy.
Yeah.
So if we can say like, okay, let go, release it, to me it helps. I don't know, it's a
Yeah.
little hack for my brain.
Well, I think those hacks are important. And
Yeah.
I think this is really awesome. I think you're doing some really great work. So I'm super excited for you. Is there anything else you wanna add?
I think I think we'll have in the show notes, we'll
Yeah.
have all the stuff, right? Yeah. If you're curious and you want to have a conversation, even if you don't think you want to join the P Suite, if you go to the website, there's a place to sign up for a clarity call. And if you're curious, I love talking to people. So feel free to book a discovery call or a clarity call, and I'm happy to chat.
Yeah. Were you going to do an offer? Did we talk about that?
Oh, yes, we have it. So we'll put a link. So I recently created we're calling it the Zone of Genius quiz, but it's really the like, what is your mystical archetype zone of genius? But it's a super quick quiz. And then you'll get in like 30 seconds, you'll get your results, and it's really fun. So
Okay.
I've gotten a lot of great feedback. So we'll include the link for that too.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be happy to put that in the show notes. All right, Keveney. Well, this has been awesome. And again, thank you for coming back to the podcast for I guess, for your second episode.
Yeah, no, it's fun. And thanks for having me. And I love what you're up to in the world too.
Thank you. Well, best to you, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Okay, bye. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to the podcast and share with your family and friends. You can also give me a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcast. It helps others find me as well. To get updates on new episodes and wellness inspiration in your inbox, please join the Wellness Inspired community. Go to thewellnessinspiredpodcast.com to sign up. I'll put the link to the website in the show notes so you can click and join. Also, there's a Facebook community at The Wellness Inspired, and you can follow me on Instagram at wellness_inspired. If you're in the Houston area or just visiting and interested in our services, acupuncture, herbal medicine, cupping, zen shiatsu, or dry needling therapy, contact us. You can find out more on our website at element5om.com. That's element5, the number 5om.com. And again, I'll put the link in the show notes. If you're interested in health and wellness coaching, we can connect in the clinic or on Zoom. Reach out to us and we'll get you on the schedule. And as always, I would love to hear your feedback. I am dedicated to bringing you great content that is inspiring and informative with an artsy, fun, edgy spin. Thank you so much for listening. We'll meet here again next time. And remember, never stop exploring, learning, loving, and being you. Bye.